Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're looking at a real legal heavyweight match, an unstoppable legal rule facing off against an immovable institutional shield. It's all about who actually has to follow the rules and who gets a pass. You know, we all like to think the law applies to everyone equally, right? Blind justice and all that. But throw international relations into the mix and things get pretty complicated. Imagine a massive international organization setting up its headquarters in your country. Do their people have to play by the exact same rules as you and me, or do they carry around a special, invisible shield?
To figure that out, we've got to start with a foundational concept called generality. Now, in criminal law, generality is just a fancy way of saying that whether you live somewhere permanently or you're just sojourning, passing through, the local sovereign laws apply to you. Period.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the rule of generality, the big exception, which is functional immunity, the actual conflict in the Westfall case, the clash between official duty and defamation, the Supreme Court ruling, and finally, wrap it up with our key takeaways. Let's get to it. Section 1. The rule of generality. Think of general law as a country's ultimate my house, my rules policy. It is a core attribute of sovereign power. Basically, if you step foot inside a country's borders, you answer to its penal laws. The state has the absolute authority to define and punish crimes to keep its community safe. No exceptions? Well, usually. Section 2. The exception. Functional immunity. Here is where the plot thickens. What happens if you work for a major global player like the Asian Development Bank? Well, that strict rule of generality might not actually apply to everything you do. See, international organizations need to operate globally without the constant stress of local lawsuits bogging them down. Because of this, they get a special status. But here's the catch. It is not absolute immunity. It's functional immunity, meaning the shield only works if the action is tied directly to their official job functions. Section 3. The Westfall case conflict. This is where we get to our anchor story. Westfall v. Locsin, a landmark Supreme Court decision, specifically GR number 250763, handed down on April 16, 2024. The story starts with Matthew Westfall. He was a former ADB staffer who applied for a technical advisor role, but he didn't get the job. As you might guess, he wasn't exactly thrilled. He used the ADB's internal grievance process to fight the rejection. But during that process, he stumbled upon some internal documents from the screening committee, led by Maria Carmela Locsin and others, and Westfall felt these documents crossed a major line. To him, this wasn't just a simple rejection anymore, it was a personal attack. It's honestly wild how fast a standard hiring process blew up into a massive lawsuit. Westfall applies, the panel issues their internal screening notes in February 2015, Westfall sees the contents of those notes, and boom, he immediately files a complaint for damages and libel. And the immediate defense from the ADB officials? They raise that shield we just talked about, functional immunity. So what did these notes actually say? Well, one specific quote read, "Westfall has been away from the urban sector work for quite some time, and he has not kept his knowledge current." Ouch. Westfall argued these statements were way beyond standard interview notes. He claimed they were highly disparaging, grossly inaccurate, and basically a malicious smear campaign designed to destroy his professional reputation. Section 4. Official duty versus defamation. This brings us to a really fascinating standoff. Westfall is claiming these officials went completely rogue, that their actions were defamatory, malicious, and ultra-vires, which is just a legal way of saying totally outside their legal power. On the flip side, Locsin and the committee are saying, wait a minute, evaluating a candidate's background is literally the exact definition of our official capacity. They argued they were just doing their jobs and were perfectly protected. So the courts had to use a litmus test. Were these officials acting as true ADB representatives fulfilling a mandate, or were they acting as rogue individuals? If they were just doing their jobs, the immunity shield stays up. But if they used their power to maliciously break the law, that shield drops instantly. Section 5. The Supreme Court ruling. In April 2024, Justice Salameta and the Supreme Court in Bank stepped in to resolve this mess. This was a critical moment because it gave us the ultimate playbook on how courts should handle cases involving international organizations and the true extent of their legal protections. The court drew a very firm line here. They explicitly stated on the record that functional immunity does not extend to all acts. It is purely limited to acts performed in an official capacity.
Basically, immunity is not some magic get-out-of-jail-free card for international officials. If an act is a crime or totally contrary to the law, immunity simply doesn't apply.
In fact, the court completely shattered the myth that these institutions are untouchable. They declared that judges absolutely have the power and the vital duty to look at the facts when someone alleges an ultra-vires act. You can't just wave a flag of functional immunity and expect the trial to vanish. The courts must peek behind the curtain to verify if the act was actually part of official duties.
But what happened when they peeked behind the curtain in Westfall's case? Well, looking at the facts, the Supreme Court realized that discussing a candidate's strengths and weaknesses is, frankly, a required part of a hiring committee's job. Sure, Westfall was deeply slighted by the comments about his skills being outdated, but the records painted a very clear picture. The committee was candidly evaluating a candidate, nothing more. And because the hiring committee was simply performing official institutional functions, functional immunity definitely applied here. The Supreme Court reversed a lower court resolution that would have kept the case alive and officially dismissed Westfall's complaint for damages. They fully discharged the defendants, reinforcing that protective boundary around legitimate official functions.
Section 6. Key takeaways on immunity. Let's quickly wrap up what we've learned today. First, generality means everyone answers to the law. Second, functional immunity is a specific exception to that rule. Third, that immunity absolutely does not cover rogue ultra-vires acts or crimes. Fourth, courts have the ultimate power to verify if an immunity claim is actually legit. And finally, if an act is an integral part of an institution's official functions, it is protected. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to chew on. In our hyper-connected world, how exactly do we protect everyday individuals from massive, powerful institutions while still letting those institutions actually get their jobs done? The Westfall case gives us a powerful framework, but as global organizations keep expanding their reach, finding that perfect balance is going to be a massive challenge for decades to come. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the rules that shape our world.